Podcast, WATP.
Stuttering John, during this interview, he was listing people he's met through show business and going through who the good ones are, Larry the Cable Guy and all that kind of stuff. And the interviewer, Peter Blate from On the Sports Web, or the Sports Web, I should say, in Tampa. Peter doesn't ask him, what do you hate about Howard Stern? Who's a shithead in Hollywood? But John offers his information up. I did a lot of this interview. I covered it on Point Devil Point this week, where he's so bitter about Howard Stern. The guy just asked, what's it like working for Stern? A question anyone would ask. And John just turns it, he's cheap. He was a prick. He just goes through all these different things. Just not a single compliment for this guy that you should look up to and realize he created this amazing career in radio.
So what's it like working there?
You're right. He just has to bash people. So this is his own transition from the good people to the people he wants to shit on while he's on the show.
And Doug Stanhope couldn't be a cooler dude. And Larry the Cable Guy, another good friend of mine.
Right.
His real name is Dan Whitney. That guy is one of the nicest people you ever meet. Now I can talk about the a-holes I met in the business.
Sure.
Always be bashing. John doesn't even know how to talk about someone he appreciates.
No, he doesn't know how to talk. But
He can't talk. But he just goes, listen, you want to know who's great? Doug Stanhope, Larry the Cable Guy. Can we talk about people who suck now, please? The guy's like, yeah, I guess so.
But even the Larry the Cable Guy thing, why? His real name's Dan Whitney.
Right. Yeah.
We watched him learn that on his fucking show. What's the DW stand for?
Yeah, he had a W on the back of his shirt. He goes, what's the W for? He says, well, it's my name. But John is an insider, though, Cardiff. He has to prove he knows more than this guy does about show business by knowing Larry the Cable Guy's name.
You know what kills me is that he doesn't realize, anyone that says to him, oh, I know you from Howard Stern. What was he like? And then he talks about what an asshole he was. No one wants to hear that.
No.
That you're breaking their heart. It's disappointing. Every time he does that, the person who asks or the host is like, oh, fuck. As a fan, you don't want to hear it. As a listener, you don't want to hear it. We want to hear the good stuff. You're just upsetting people. You're just, that hero of yours, total dick, asshole, don't like him. Also,
he was there for 15 years, 14 years. It'd be one thing if it's Stephanie Miller and you're like, oh, God, I could not work for that bitch. She was terrible. Okay, how long did you work there? A month. Okay, yeah. I get it. You worked for Howard Stern. What was that like? Oh, miserable, awful. You're there for 15 years.
Anyway,
That's right.
Would you want me to sign this picture of me giving Howard a Christmas present? Which was the greatest day of my life.
Oh, dude, somebody sent me that, and I should have had it ready for this show. Someone sent me what John was offering to sign because he got a couple autographs when he was at the Tampa Expo. Damn it, I should have had that prepared. Anyway.
I think I have that somewhere.
Do you?
His chat's all L's, by the way, in case you're wondering.
He just missed a huge opportunity to play his copyrighted music and strike me because I never snipe shows. I don't do that over here, and we were just sniping him. Missed opportunity for Johnny. Wasn't quick enough. But yeah, he was. It's crazy. There's a really old photo of him with Howard and Jackie. No one looks good in the photo. It's not well lit. It definitely was never meant to be like a press pic. And he's signing that for people. Howard famously did not let anyone put his face or likeness on any merchandise ever and was upset with anyone who wanted to do that who was a part of his show. He thought it cheapened the show, and he didn't want to take advantage of his listeners by just putting his face on a shirt or an image or something. And look at what John's up to now. This asshole boss that he worked for.
Yep.
But
he's so controlling of his image. There's those pictures of every guest that had been on the Sirius show of them. They get to take their picture with Howard. And if you remove the guest, it looks like the same photo. Howard wants to be photographed in this pose with his hand like that, doing this thing. And John's just throwing out this candid picture. I'm guessing because he loves to tell every single person the story of how he didn't get a good Christmas gift from Howard. He got the thing of popcorn. He looked for the check. There was no check. So what's the picture he wants to sign? It's John holding this oversized novelty Christmas gift box that he's giving to Howard. I feel like he thinks that's the end of that story. And see how generous I was.
You're right. And he did tell that story on this guy's show, by the way, with Peter Blake. We played that on Point Devil Point. on Monday. But first, John wanted to transition conversation about celebrities to people he wants to bash. So let's see what he's got here.
No, the top two people that I met were, because I helped Chelsea Handler in the beginning.
Okay.
I put her on my tour, and then she became a real biatch. and she's been horrible. She's been known to be a horrible person.
Right.
The other one that I found really odd was Ryan Seacrest. Okay. And I'm going to get back to radio here because now I'm on the Tonight Show.
Right.
I'm the announcer.
Right.
And I go backstage with Ryan, he's a radio guy.
Sure.
I'm a radio guy.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey.
It's a fraternity, by the way, because I worked in radio too, and I feel like we're competing against each other.
Shut up, Peter. Peter jumps in for some reason.
He jumps in because did you see the look he was giving him? He's like, okay, so you don't want a career in radio, and you don't want me to have a career in radio. Okay, we're just going to sit here and talk shit about radio
Ryan
broadcast,
Seacrest.
the Casey Kasem of our day, and local comics that might come through. Like he's just looking at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah,
he tries to change the subject.
Correct. I love this idea that John goes, Chelsea Handler, well known to be a bitch. It's not just me saying this. And all I ever do is try to help the woman. Anyone who was on Stuttering John and Friends tour was helping John.
Yes.
John needed someone to fill that time so that people would go and laugh and get their money's worth. And then John took half the money.
Right.
But he acts like he was giving people their start by being on the Stuttering John and Friends tour, which is insane. Everyone knows John. But yeah, he goes into Ryan Seacrest. He's like, I'm a radio guy. He's a radio guy. Ryan Seacrest is a radio guy like if I said Joe Rogan's a podcaster, I'm a podcaster. Yeah. You know, it's like we're not even in the same leagues here. What are you talking about? Yeah, so I go up to Joe and I'm like, hey, Joe, you know, I do a show on YouTube too. And he wasn't as impressed with that. I couldn't believe it.
Guys like you and me, Joe, did you get the hamburger pants? When did you wear them?
Right. So this is an attempt at a dick joke that fails miserably, and I don't know what John thought was going to happen here.
So I went backstage. God, I'm the one announcing his freaking name, and he wasn't as big yet. Like,
right.
He only had, I think, one show as opposed to the 2,000 he has now.
But good for him, by the way.
He's the next Dick Clark, and I use let me put some focus on Dick. Anyway, so Dick Clark.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
of course.
Yes.
They're still doing that, by the way, even though he's dead.
Let me put some focus on Dick. Anyways, was that supposed to get a joke? Yeah. Get it? Because his first name is Dick. Yeah, sure is. Good stuff. It was a focus on Dick.
And now the guy's leaning away from him immediately because you were touching me and being weird. Can I ask a question? Did John design the set? Because this is his normal cardboard box background. Like, this is his brand.
It's terrible.
I don't know if he leaned his greasy head on that Riddell box. With that stain there.
That's the stain.
Yeah, so this is from the Sports Expo, obviously, because there's just a bunch of boxes and football helmets strewn about. So
this is what the Sports Expo should be. Not Stuttering John.
Yeah,
that's what it's
sports, right.
Yeah. Can I take some of these boxes with me?
I also did you guys notice that John goes, so Ryan Seacrest is on the Tonight Show. Before he was like super famous.
Right.
Ryan Seacrest was the host of America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
American Idol.
Or American Idol, thank you.
American Idol.
Right, thank you, Eric. So American Idol was the biggest show on TV. It was like 30 million viewers were tuning into it every day. Ryan Seacrest
so was that Humperdinck guy, but he's gone.
Dunkelman,
we don't know him no more.
Well, John tours with him.
John did tour with him, for a minute. But yeah, so it's weird that John's just like, he wasn't that famous back then. As if like Ryan Seacrest is supposed to be desperate for camaraderie or companionship with Stuttering John.
But John doesn't know why he says things like that, except that he's always bashing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Carl, you know how Ryan Seacrest was famous at the time?
How's that?
He was a guest on the Tonight Show in the early 2000s.
Right.
That's how you know he's famous.
Yeah, he's famous.
That's very funny.
Correct.
And this guy
John's
Peter
trying to downplay it.
Yeah, Peter's looking at him like, okay, you're shitting on Ryan Seacrest and you're praising Brian Dunkelman. this is not the horse to bet on. Like, it just communicates, get away from this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing.
And John has the balls to say, and I'm the one announcing him.
I know, as if that's not his just job.
Right.
Like, you're going to sabotage his appearance because he wasn't nice to you?
Any contact John has with someone turns into like some favor he did.
Yeah, he's doing a favor,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Chelsea Handler doing a set of comedy for a set price is not a favor, it's a job. When you got the job on the Howard Stern show, that was a favor. That was doing something nice.
How many times he takes credit for putting Shuli's calls through on Howard Stern? Again, his job.
Writing Shuli's material for him, too, obviously. So
he's obviously still writing for Shuli.
Adam, I'm glad you're picking up on what's going on between these two, because Peter is kind of in radio still. And Ryan Seacrest is a pretty big deal. He's syndicated all over the United States. And so John just bringing him up to bash him, you'd be like, all right, this must be like a story. John must have a really specific story about Ryan Seacrest and what a douche he is if he's going to bring this up without being asked.
So I went back to Ryan and said, hey, man, you know, I was in radio too. Just want to say hi. And it blew me off. He looked at me like I had three heads and just was just so conceited.
That was the story. I'm so glad you shoehorned that into the conversation, John. A guy didn't treat you the way you wanted him to treat you before his probably first ever appearance on The Tonight Show, which some people get nerves about, and they're maybe looking through their notes or they're thinking through their stories and talking points.
I love that he thinks he's spilling the tea instead of exposing himself for being the insecure douche that he is.
Yes, that's how Peter's looking at him like, yeah, I bet Seacrest was the problem.
So this is like John Coy. This is someone figuring out who he is in real time.
Right.
Love it.
But this David Feldman explained on John's show why the dog Triumph was rude to John before the show. The monologue you were about to launch into, Carl, about maybe Triumph was nervous, maybe he was getting ready, maybe it wasn't like he got John to see and realize that he was being selfish and wrong, and John immediately, once he got to that point, said, yeah, well, fuck that guy anyway, and now has drank himself into a stupor ever since then, and is still right back where he started. He's learned nothing. There's nothing you can do to help him.
Cardiff, any new updates? I see you monitoring multiple screens over there.
Oh, yeah, it's still a black screen.
Okay.
Still collecting super chats.
Oh, good for him. He's earned it.
Yeah.
All right, so then he tells a story about when Gilbert Gottfried and Billy Bob Thornton were both on The Tonight Show and the interaction between them. And Peter sees an opportunity to get some comedy out of this guy. He's got a comedian on his show. It's normally sports talk. Let's get some comedy out of him.
And Billy Bob is complimenting Gilbert, praising him like just, you're the best. And Gilbert is so awkwardly uncomfortable. I'm just laughing because Gilbert can't. He's just like,
Can you do a Gilbert Godfrey impression?
No, I can't. I'm not a big impersonator. But yeah, but
That's great.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
He's trying so hard to turn this into something. I
know.
Peter is getting his money's worth, or he's earning his paycheck. I should say. He's really working hard to make this interesting. John's anecdotes just fall flat every time. Billy Bob Thornton liked Gilbert Gottfried. I'm cool. I do too.
I mean, he could have, even with the Ryan Seacrest stuff, he could have gone the route of, the Kardashians. He's involved with them. We came up with the idea for that. Like something can make a connection.
It's all brags. It's bragging disguised as anecdotes, bragging disguised as jokes. It's just, or bashing. Like someone has to be the asshole that he's better than. And in this instance, it's Gilbert Gottfried, right?
Yeah, he has this tell. It's a transition. He goes, oh, funny thing about that. Yeah. Whenever he says that, he is going to drop a name, possible 3 or 4 different celebrity names.
And it's never a funny thing.
It's not a funny thing.
Never.
It's not going to go anywhere. He just wants to tell you he ran into Ryan Seacrest once.
He was conceited.
Well, let's talk about sports. John's a sports fan. They're at a sports convention. They're on a sports show. So finally they transition. Let's get some sports talk going. Maybe John will do a better job with this.
I told my friend Jiggs, I said, listen, they're not going to win until they change their helmets and uniforms. And as soon as they did,
1997,
they won.
They did. And now they're bringing it back. And every time
they have Jeremy Shockey, too.
They didn't have Jeremy Shockey.
No, Keyshawn Johnson.
Keyshawn Johnson, who was a Jet.
Yes, but I'll tell you.
Your buddy there, Shockey, was a Giant.
Yes, I know, but I thought he went to Tampa, too. No.
No,
no.
Keyshawn.
Jeremy Shockey.
No, not Jeremy Shockey. No.
No? Oh,
no.
Oh, for some reason I thought you did.
That's okay.
But anyway, I'm a Yankee fan.
Okay.
They're in Tampa. There's a Tampa sports show. John doesn't know what he's talking about. He's like, yeah, they changed their uniforms, and then they won, something a woman would say about a sports team. And then he references Jeremy Shockey, who never played for the team. And he's like, oh, really? What? Are you sure?
Cotton jerseys. Who would have thought?
All right, let's talk about the Yankees. They're like, yeah, man, let's talk about the Yankees. It's great.
I love when you tell John something he doesn't know or he gets wrong. His only response is, I know.
Right.
You don't know.
He wants to argue more, but then he realizes there's two different people telling him that he's wrong. So he's just like, all right, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not going to argue this one.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
I'll deal with you later.
Pretty much. All right, so he was on a show, Jason Gillearn's Divorce Podcast. And this was in 2017. He was on the show. This just surfaced. Someone posted it on YouTube, and Dabblers picked up on it. And Adam, I know you listened to this, and it starts off. I'm going to play the first clip I have. Jay, the guy who's interviewing John, who has this podcast, struggles having this podcast about divorce because he's also a comic. I shouldn't say also. Jason Gillearn is a comic,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing this show about divorce, and it's hard to make that funny. It's actually quite depressing.
When that goes away and you can't be with your kids every day.
Okay, hold on. This is already too fucking depressing for me. But I want to. I know. But listen,
That's
hold
why
on.
I said this is the worst premise.
But listen, this will also fucking help people.
Thanks, John. Thanks for your support of this. Hey, you want to be a guest on my show? Only if I can call it out. Well, if I can tell your format sucks and it's not a good show. Sure. All right, then come on. Let's do that.
There's also something unique going on here, and that's that John and Jason Gillearn are friends.
Yes.
Their wives know each other. They have a history, so they're comfortable with each other. And the other thing of note is that John is wasted, but he insisted on getting Jason stoned, and Jason is not used to being this stoned while interviewing. And it causes some train wreck moments, but it causes some great moments where Jason won't drop it and insist on getting an answer from John, which we never get. So that's really great.
That's
but
great.
John is just a supervillain through all this.
I have one more clip before we get into the stuff that you picked up on.
Yeah.
And John drops the hackiest joke possible. John is just a hack in every way.
Can I say your wife's name? Or
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Suzanner is...
Oh, I usually call her a witch, but okay.
This is depressing comedy. It's a whole fucking thing. A mixed bag of fucking...
Yeah.
So...
Just she's not allowed to be near water.
Well, here's the situation.
Is that a Wizard of Oz reference?
I believe so.
Is that a thing that witches aren't supposed to be near water? Or is it just Wizard of Oz, right? Is
You throw them in water. You throw them in water to see if they float or something. There's a
that.
thing.
Yeah, there's Salem witch trials, but
Or she a gremlin?
Yeah, something like that.
Jesus Christ. That's the worst joke. Her name's Suzanner, right? Yeah, I call her witch. Do ya? Okay. Good stuff.
What went wrong, huh?
This era of John is so frustrating. We've been watching it a lot these last few days.
Yeah.
And he needs everyone to laugh along with them. And that's his signal to be like, I told a joke, and now it's your turn to laugh. It's brutal. So what your clip number one here, you want to set it up for us, Adam?
Well, it's 5 minutes in, and they finally get to the first question.
So, Johnny.
Yes.
I want to hear about the fucking good times because I've even asked you this before I started thinking about doing this fucking podcast. Like you and Suzanner, everything was okay. Was everything amazing? First question is genuinely, was there ever a problem when you met where you thought to yourself initially, there's a problem there, but I'm going to fucking look by it.
No.
Or someone told me something.
I fell deeply in love with Suzanner.
Okay, so tell me all about those fucking rad times.
Did he have their first kid out of wedlock and later married her? And he's acting like they were always deeply in love and love at first sight. And I don't know if that's really true, but all right.
You're going to hear this because it's his friend and he's comfortable. He instinctually, like a tick, has to say no to everything the guy says. And almost everything he says no to, he either immediately or shortly thereafter says the opposite, which happens in the next clip.
I should try that technique because on this show we agree with each other way too much, I'm told by Kevin Brennan.
Well, then write the script differently. I'm just reading what you wrote me. I don't have any opinions.
You know, I took it to Hawaii because I did.
You met how in a
we
play?
met in Tony and Tina's wedding.
Whose?
Tony and Tina's wedding. It's an off-Broadway show.
Tony's wedding. Tony's wedding.
And the sheer arrogance of he's like at Tony Tina's wedding, and the guy's like, "Oh, who got married?
Right,
the off-Broadway show."
Oh, you're not familiar? Yeah,
yeah. No, I'm not waiting for Godot. He's not a person, you dumb fuck.
Right.
Sorry,
John.
John.
I do not know about Tony and Tina's wedding.
His wedding. It's an off-Broadway show.
Okay. Oh shit.
In New York, and we met there. And it doesn't matter what we were playing, but we fell in love.
I'd rather meet at Yakov Smirnoff's dinner theater. A better story than that.
I'm in Branson. She's in Branson. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, right.
What a country fried steak.
And what a cut on this girl.
And
during the fucking play, you were an actor and she was an actress in the play. Amazing.
Yeah, and we fell deeply in love. So there's not one part of me that doesn't or will never not care about her.
Incredible. Mm-hmm. That sounds like
there's not one part of me that will never not care about her. I'll still care about her more in my little pinky. What is he talking about? What does that mean?
I thought she was a witch.
Right, yes. It's back and forth.
Yeah. So even though that she turned out to be
we're not there yet.
Something different, I still love that fucking bitch.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I'm thinking of all these fucking questions now as I'm.
Oh, yeah,
but I'm gonna forget them.
You are the worst Barbara Walters ever.
Let me fucking write this down. These questions while I do this.
Well, what you're supposed to do, Jason, is actually prepare
I don't know.
questions.
I don't want to know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't give a fuck.
That's rich. Yeah. John telling someone how to interview someone on his show. Oof, I don't know if he has the authority.
Did you hear that laugh?
Yeah, I could picture it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You see that in a script and it says evil maniacal laughing. Like, people don't do that. That's not a thing. Listen to that. They don't. But yeah, he does.
That's not normal.
No, it's dark. It's a real darkness. And once again, he just keeps going and saying the opposite of whatever he just said. Now he has to explain, oh yeah, well, I did know early on that there were signs that a divorce might be coming.
When did shit start initially to go, I don't know if I'm digging this. Sour. Sour is a great word. I'm writing that down. Go ahead. When? Like earliest. And exactly what were the situations?
What happened was, I remember once we were in a cab and she was pregnant with our first.
So that's early, bro.
And I was, we were together for a year, but I don't know. I remember we argued over something so stupid, like over a doctor or something.
Okay, but that's a fucking
for an abortion.
That's a fight. Yeah. A fight is fucking normal. Why was that fight? Why was that fight different? And how did?
No, that was the first time that we ever had a fight. That's why.
That's what I'm saying. Well,
and then you see another side, and you go, "Uh-oh."
Interesting. They were deeply in love. There was never any doubt. It was meant to be, and then they got into a fight once. He's like, "Oh, look at this bitch. I don't know about this one."
And he
probably
revealed that
because she was pregnant with a girl, and John wanted a boy. Little did he know that was going to happen 20 years down the road.
Fully unknown. It was a fight about something insignificant. I don't know, something about a doctor. Probably the only insignificant topic there could be would be something involving a doctor. I think I have a suspicion as to what that doctor might have advised the Melendez family that John didn't like, but I'll let him reveal it himself later on.
Okay. Fair enough.
And this next one is he explains how it's a delicate transition between moving on from your ex to your future wife and how you have to handle it delicately so all the parties involved are happy.
Right.
I've had 3 loves in my life, and Suzanner being the third. So the girl before
being
Suzanner
the first
was
2.
Karen,
That's what the doctor said.
that was working on the Channel 9 show with Howard.
Oh, wow.
Are you going to text?
No. I'm writing down what you're saying for a future question, because that's a fucking great question. Past love.
Again, the fact that John would actually call someone out for looking at their phone during an interview. He's unbelievable, this one.
So what I'm saying is, but we just weren't right at that time, and I met Suzanner, and I loved Suzanner more.
Holy shit.
And that's, and
you left her for Suzanner?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
In fact, she found...
Why is that crazy? You know that they got married. Okay.
He's stoned out of his mind. He is.
He's looking at his hand.
Wait, so you were dating a girl named Karen, and then eventually you guys broke up and you married the woman that I've met, that you used to hang out
you
with?
became a Karen.
Yeah, well, there's that.
No, he was shocked that he was able to fool more than one woman.
That is
He was like, you guys met as actors in the same play? Oh, that's amazing. That's
right.
Never heard of that. Never
happened before. Who would want to put their penis inside of a coworker?
In fact, she found Susanna's she had these silk white pajama pants.
Oh my God.
And in the end, she found them there. She said, "Whose are these?"
Oh, so John was cheating on Karen with Suzanner. Okay.
Yep.
And I said, "My mom's."
What'd she say to
that? Your mom's obese. How's she fitting this?
So John jokes about his mom's panties, and it's funny, but Mike Morse puts a photo of them behind him, and it's cause for litigation. Didn't
He called his mom fat on a podcast. So I guess that's on the table now, too.
He did just do that, yes.
He called her obese, but he thinks it's grounds for litigation that somebody called his sister Danny DeVito-like. And he's repeated that.
Yes.
Shit. Did she ever want to get married when you were together, or did you didn't, or how'd that go? Was it ever mentioned?
I once did when we played at this club in Queens.
Oh, this is a great story. I pointed this out, I think, yesterday on Living in the Past with Stuttering John, which you can get on our Patreon or our YouTube channel if you become a member, a bonus show we did. John tells these anecdotes. The anecdote that he told on the show that we played yesterday was playing a video game that was at Royce's Arcade. The guest brought up. And John's story was, oh, yeah, I used to play that game when I was drunk with my friends. Every story has to be around drinking and being drunk to remind everyone how cool he is, I think.
And I had friends.
Yes. So this is another example of that. This is, asking if him and Karen ever thought about getting married.
Club in Queens with my band, and then we were driving home or whatever, and we had to pull over because I had to puke. And I told her that I loved her. No. I mean, I told her that I wanted to marry her. But
I mean, did you ever talk about that sober?
Get married? No.
So it took you having a drink till you puked to fucking propose.
Look, I mean, that's what...
Take what you can get, bitch.
I think there's a billion people who can relate to that.
Yeah, well...
Unfortunately, they won't be listening to this shit.
Married or not married. So...
Do you guys think that actually happened, that John was coming home from a gig with his rock band, and he was so drunk they had to pull over and puke, and then he's like, we should get married, bitch? I don't believe any of that. I think he just wanted to talk about how he used to play in bands and he was cool, and he got really drunk, and he'd be vomiting because he'd be so drunk because he's such a cool drinker.
I believe that 100%. I believe he asked her to marry him with vomit on his fucking shirt.
Yes. That does sound likely, actually.
It does. What's great about that little story is that no matter what, whether it's the truth or a lie or a combination of both, it's all like the worst thing you could tell. Like it all makes him look so bad, no matter where it came from.
He has no idea, but he thinks it makes him look cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that's the alcohol and this immaturity are a theme. It keeps coming up. You press a little bit and there's always alcohol right below the surface of any of this. So now the guy really, he's like, tell me what the nail in the coffin was. And I leave in the guy's rambling question for a reason. See if you can pick up on it.
I want to know, when were you initially okay, this is too many fights, or fuck this, or I could see possibly separating, or what? The initial part of it. Was it in California?
No. Again, Jason, like every marriage, you start, you get into it and everything's fine. You get in a few arguments, whatever, but you still love that person. So I loved her, and I still love her. But when we were in California is when...
oh, wow. He goes, no, it wasn't in California. But actually what happened was when we got to California, he just wanted to say no. Wow.
I kind of knew it was over.
Holy shit.
But she did too. I mean, there were just a lot of problems I'm not going to get into because it would bore the crap out of her.
Well, that's gonna be...
Can I translate what's happening here?
Yeah.
The pizza wasn't as good.
John gets to California. He's making way more money. He's on television, and he has connections. And that's where all the beautiful people move to, is California. And he went, oh, I could be fucking all of these girls instead of just my wife every night. Again, the pizza.
Same pizza every night.
Yeah, it's literally what he's saying right here.
Problem for my podcast. You think so or not really?
No, I'm telling you, like the whole Denise thing where her best friend started living with me. And
yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah.
This is fascinating right here. This gets really interesting. So let's learn about Denise and what Jason knows about Denise, because again, these were all friends when John was still married to Suzanner, and apparently Denise moved in with them.
Started living with me, and
yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah.
But that wasn't.
No, Jay. What the problem is that when I knew we were having problems with our relationship. And I said, Denise has got to go because Suzanne was spending all her time with her best friend.
I didn't fucking know that. You never told me that, and I completely understand that.
And I said, you got to ask Denise to leave, else this ain't gonna work.
Oh, you never told me that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I totally understand it, dude.
And then she said no.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No. And I asked Denise to leave, and she said no.
Oh my God.
So that's when.
That's fucking, I never knew that.
I'm being so disrespected here.
I never knew
I had
that.
a therapist,
No. That's not cool.
And it was like, no, you're being, so disrespected.
That's not cool.
No, even the therapist agreed with John. How convenient.
When we went to marriage counseling in the last, few weeks of our marriage, whatever, even the marriage counselor said that's wrong.
Was Denise sitting there too?
No, I know. But she said no. I mean, she
that's
said
fucking
that's
crazy.
wrong.
I never knew that.
Did you ever know that, Card? If you know everything about Stuttering John, that he had a Denise move in with them before they got a divorce?
No, that's a new story.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
And I pulled a clip on here that is so telling, because you have this guy, Jason, who used to hang out with them, knew Denise, knew Suzanner, and this was his interpretation of what was happening.
For the people listening, I met Johnny had this fucking assistant, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Denise, and she used to bring you beers and shit.
No, she's not. Well,
not an assistant. It was
now I don't like her, but she was nice at the time. But then again, I let her live in my place for free, and then.
Do I even need to comment on this? This guy saw Denise as his personal assistant. This was his wife's best friend who moved in because Suzanner was bored out of her mind or whatever the situation was. And this guy was hanging out with them and went, oh, Denise, that was your assistant. And he's like, oh, no, I mean, I would make her grab me beers and stuff like that. But she was living rent-free, what am I supposed to do? Got to take advantage of the situation.
Sounds like Suzanner.
Yeah, she was the new Suzanner until she wasn't, until she stopped getting his beers.
Well, what's interesting is that he used to always brag on the Stern Show about how Suzanner brought him those beers. So now he's like, I don't need you, Suzanner. Denise is going to do it for me. And then we get to learn how John feels when that situation gets reversed. It's grounds for divorce.
Here's the worst part, Jason.
That's fucked
I'm
up.
going to be completely candid here.
Right.
We would be on my bed.
No, you and Suzanner only?
No. I would be on my bed in Calabasas, and this is in the last place we lived. And I would hear my kids hanging out with Denise and Suzanne like all night while I was working,
right?
Like watching all the clips I had to do for the Tonight Show.
Right, but that's normal. That's cool.
All right, fine. So, like, Denise became Susanna's emotional surrogate. Like, you know, so, like, I was out of the picture. I mean, she didn't care anymore.
God damn it. Being a workaholic is so difficult when you're trying to keep a relationship together. John just needed to work all the time. Ugh.
I picture him there with a tear rolling down his cheek as he hears the children playing with Denise and Suzanner.
It was all about her friend Denise. And when I asked her to leave, like I said.
And why did you ask her to leave initially? Why?
Why did I ask Denise to leave?
Yes.
Because I knew our marriage was falling apart.
Okay.
And I was like, if she's still here, then we're not going to be able to work on this.
From a man's perspective, hearing your situation, putting myself in that situation, 1,000%. I mean, maybe, do you blame yourself for letting it get that far in the first place instead of 80?
Oh. What will John say next? A, yes, I do blame myself. B, it probably is partly my fault. C, you got me.
Next. Lastly.
Well, you know, it's so funny. I talked.
Oh, sorry. I thought Cardiff was talking for some reason.
Do you blame yourself for letting it get that far in the first place instead of 86?
Well, you know, it's so
earlier?
funny. I talked to my friend in New York, and he said, as soon as like Denise was like moving in, he goes, the biggest mistake ever. Like he knew.
He didn't tell you that though?
No, he did. He said, biggest mistake ever, because now that's
Did he know Denise or just as a girl?
No, he knew her. But not because of her personality.
It's just you have a fucking marriage.
It was just like,
I get it.
You know, then she's going to hang out, and I'm like I'm the odd man out.
I would have told you the same thing before, I think, but when you had Denise, to me, it just seemed fucking cool. It seemed like she was your assistant.
Yeah, but she wouldn't leave because
wow.
And you know, it's still.
I just didn't put two and two together.
It still goes on to this day because.
Is it possible that John's just blaming Denise for all of this? Because this guy was like, no, she seemed awesome. And she's just like helping out around the house and doing whatever you wanted. You know, what you asked her to do. He's like, no. It was actually terrible. It was so bad. He's like, okay. I didn't see that at all.
Why do you think that John couldn't go hang out with them? Why did he have to stay in his room?
Because of workahol.
Right.
He just can't live without it.
But we know that's not him. You know, he's not driven by that burning desire to achieve.
We played a story on. So was it on? I'm getting my things mixed up because I did Point Dabble Point, and then we did Living in the Past. The Coke story he did, missing work.
Right.
The Tonight Show that was on. Living in the Past.
The only time he ever called in.
The bonus show we did yesterday. So just to give you an idea of workaholic John, he tells this story about on a weekday night, picks up this 26-year-old hot chick from the bar, brings her back to his place. They're doing blow. He's banging her. Then he can't get it up because of the blow. He's got to take Viagra. And then they're up till 5 a.m. He's supposed to get to work at 7. He has to call in. I'm so sick. Meanwhile, we're supposed to think that this guy wants to be hanging out with his family and his kids, but he's just sitting there watching NFL games, waiting for someone to say like penetration 3 or 4 more times so we can pull the clip for Jay and they can play it on the show.
I'm so glad you said NFL games. What does John like to do when he watches sports?
Drink beer.
Yeah.
What does he like to do when he podcasts?
Drink beer.
What does he like to do when he's teaching children in elementary school?
Zoom court.
I forget what engagement was when my daughter just like won all these overall achievement awards in junior high, and you know, we all had a dinner or something, and Denise was there, and we were talking like we used to, like we were friends.
Can I get you to pause it? His daughter won all these overall achievement awards.
Right.
Wouldn't an overall achievement award be one award?
No, it's tons of them. It's tons of different overall achievement awards.
And she said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I said, yeah, if you want to come over, next night, whatever. Fucking
wait, that's when you first met her and said come over, or what?
No.
I'm stoned. Tell me,
Jay. This is like way
after your divorce.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Way
You didn't tell me this either.
Yeah. And
so what happened?
Yeah, and then
you ran into Denise.
Yeah, we were hanging out at one of my kids' successes, which, as you know, are fucking
multitude.
One of my kids' success.
And have them put tonight.
And where do they get all this brain power from? Which one of you?
Of course, me.
Okay,
Jason.
got it. But so Suzanna's there too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just thought you ran into.
No, but Denise and I talked, and she said she would hang out. She wanted to talk to me, and then the next day she, would respond to my text. I'm like, "Are you gonna hang out?" And then
so he tried to fuck Denise.
Oh yeah.
He tried to fuck his ex-wife's best friend. And he's complaining about getting cock-blocked right here.
And she just blocked me. Like,
wow.
Because
well, she's with Suzanne. She's friends with Suzanne.
I know.
Right.
But it's kind of weird. Maybe. Do you think that she was lying to you initially, or she was cool and was like, I will, and then she had a second thought where, like, she can't do that?
Well, yeah.
Because I like Denise. She was fucking.
Yeah, but exactly. But Jason, guess what? I mean, so,
yeah.
I'm going to think that she's a friend.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What is the real story here? Denise moves in, and he says she's got to go. And Suzanne and Denise say, nope, she's not leaving. And then they get divorced, and then he's trying to fuck Denise the next time he sees her at his kid's thing with Susanna there. He's like, come back to my place. We'll do some blow. I'll almost get it up. I think he was in love with Denise. I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why the marriage ended is because John was caught trying to fuck Denise.
He confesses to jerking off to her and thinking about her in this episode. He says he would do that when Suzanner wasn't having sex with him. He would sit there and do that.
So there's a lot more going on. So then they get a divorce, and Susanna tells her family not to talk to John anymore. We're shutting John out of our lives. Don't talk to him. But as we know, one of John's best friends, because he listed him, one of the first people he listed when he talked about all of his friends that he has, is his brother-in-law. And this is interesting insight in the way John thinks.
Susanna's brother
did the same thing to him. Like, you can't speak to John, and the whole family. You can't hang out with John. And my brother-in-law, much to his, fucking
credit,
or benefit, whatever. Much to his credit, whatever. He
can't be right.
said no.
How funny is that? My brother-in-law, much to his credit, no, much to his benefit, decided to still be my friend, even though Susanna told him not to. He sees that as a benefit for his brother-in-law, being his friend.
Or he just doesn't want the guy talking to him to be right ever, so he's got to be wrong just to correct the guy. And he doesn't have positive words at the ready. He's asshole and loser is ready, but when it's to describe something positive, there's a block.
Benefit, yeah, he doesn't have those on the tip of the tongue.
Something.
That's a good point.
And it looks like Denise was his booking agent in 2008.
Oh, so she did work for him, because he kept saying assistant, and he's like, no, my wife's best friend. So
I think she
did work for him.
An old friend from back home that was Susanna's friend that needed to come out to L.A. for some reason, needed some help, and John did one of those, she'll be my assistant, I could use some help. And I bet she helped him for a while, and then as she got personally entangled in their mess and John was on his, downward descent, I think Suzanner was like, stay. And I really think she was like, stay because I don't feel safe. I think someone wasn't safe. That's when you move someone in. You're like, okay, if I can't leave, I don't trust you alone with these people. There's a story John told, you played it on your show a long time ago, where he says there was the last Thanksgiving he had at his house, and his in-laws were there, and he was giving a speech, and his mother-in-law stands up in the middle of the speech and says, "You're drunk." And he says this story to be like, what a bitch my mother-in-law is. But anyone who hears that story is like, he must have been wasted. Yeah. And she's like, what are you doing? It's Thanksgiving. The doctor, all of these things. He wouldn't stop drinking. He's alone in his room drinking. You can be around the kids if you're not drinking. Well, fuck it, I have work to do. So then he goes, close the door and does his work.
It unfortunately, we had to go through all of the legal proceedings when John wasn't paying child support. And you see in there Suzanner talking to the court and saying, John drinks beer every single day and he's smoking weed. And, I'm concerned about him being around the kids and he wants 50-50 custody. And I don't want him to have 50-50 custody of the kids. I don't think he's trustworthy as a parent at this point. It's like, this was an ongoing issue. You're right, Adam. For once.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it to you every time, but this time you might be onto something.
It's just a theory.
Jason asked some great questions of John in this next clip.
But my question to you, Johnny, is...
You should probably call it like the Jesus.
This is a very confused podcast, so I will grant you that. But let me ask you. So, what percentage do you blame yourself? Why do you blame yourself if you do it all?
Look, if Hitler didn't force me into those showers.
Great question. What percentage do you blame yourself if you do it all? And I don't know where John's going with this. He was just taking orders, I guess. I don't know what he means by that.
So
what do you?
I'm saying, do you blame? You have to have some. You must.
Yes,
if you go through that, you must, as a human, must have some.
I took her for granted.
You took her for granted. Okay, that's pretty fucking broad in many different ways. How specifically? And I think a lot of women hearing this, or not just fucking women, men get taken for granted too. Would like to hear a person say that, because I think a lot of people do.
Well,
how did you take her for granted specifically?
Because I stopped having sex with her, but it wasn't.
Stopped having sex with her. That must have been a sad day for Suzanner. I can only imagine. Oh, rats
for you, Suzanner.
Oh no! Darn it all. That's a horrible answer to how did you take her for granted. Let's see if he corrects it.
Again,
how is that? That's not really taking someone for granted.
Well, it's just I don't know, Jay. I mean, I took it for granted. Well, at least this is what I keep saying, so it makes her feel better. But I took it for granted because she would do everything for me. She's an amazing
woman. I mean, I didn't have a
maybe I should appreciate it more.
Interesting. That's fucking very well said.
Yeah. A very drunk John just finally actually came out with the truth that he needs a mom wife, dare I say it, to take care of him. Whether it's Denise or Susanna or his actual mom, he needs that in his life because he cannot control himself at all.
Yeah, he said she did everything for me, and I should have appreciated her.
Yeah.
Everything.
I didn't realize that having registration in your car would be so difficult to do, but apparently couldn't pull it off without Suzanner.
I took it for granted.
It also smacks to me of like the one thing they made him acquiesce to in couples therapy, and it was the one thing they made him say, and that he kept, like, they kept jamming into his head, that he kept trying to implement, but he makes it clear he didn't know what it meant. He just knew it was like words, like, I was told to take responsibility, so I keep saying I take responsibility and then do nothing about it.
Right.
He mumbled something about that. It's what I kept saying it to make her feel better. Like, he doesn't.
Yeah, after the sex thing, he's like, well, that can't be what it is.
No. And he still hasn't. That was the thing, so he goes with that, and that's all he's got. Because there's one real reason that he refuses to mention, but thank God this Jason guy is just stoned enough to hammer this home.
I think anyone would like to hear that, and I'm sure Suzanner would like to hear that.
I've told her. It doesn't matter. Well, but again, we're still close, but she's got a boyfriend now.
Yeah.
Not like I would ever want to be back.
Let me ask you about that. Like you, I know you, and you have been with many, many, many women since your divorce.
All right, so you hear John brag about banging chicks. I know you, and you're always talking about banging chicks.
And does it bother you that she is with another person? Because I could see, that's amazing to me.
No, I don't care.
No.
That's incredible. And what an honest answer.
I've had it. I've had sex with a Jay.
Oh, what a gross thing to say. Does it bother you that your ex-wife, the mother of your children, has found a new love and is happy? I already tapped that shit. Who cares? What an insulting thing to say. He doesn't even realize it, too.
No, he doesn't, because he just said, my heart was broken listening to her laugh with the babysitter.
Right.
It destroyed me. Fuck it, I've used tissue. I've been there.
And let's not forget that at this time, 2 of his children were adults.
Right.
And one was rapidly approaching adulthood.
And one was way smarter than John already at this point because Oscar's a genius. Correct. One more clip out here, the moment of truth.
This is it.
Do you want to set this up, Adam?
That's all you need to know. As is the theme here. You bring people to these moments of actualization, and they acknowledge it, and then they run in the other direction.
So listen, let me ask you this then. Tell me one, and I think you've been very honest, extremely honest, Johnny, extremely honest, and that's why I want to do with you, because you just put shit out there. So what would one thing that Suzanner would say is great about you, and one thing, not blaming for the marriage, but one thing that you did besides taking her for granted that she'd be like, that was a...
Is this like inside the actor studio? Because if it is, ask me my favorite curse word, and I'll say you're a fucking dickhead.
That's not how the answer to that question would work, John. All right.
Rather use Keith Sutherland's answer.
Yes. Let's not get into that right now, Cardiff.
The one thing.
Well, just one thing. Give me something positive that Suzanner would be like, John's amazing at blah, 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 blah. Because you're a great dad.
You know what? Honestly, if Suzanner, she'll say smart, loving,
you're a great
caring,
dad, too.
Great dad. Like, she would say.
How could he take her for granted and be loving and caring? It can't be both of those things. And smart, don't get me started on smart. She would not say that.
All those things.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's not, I mean, the only bad thing she would say is like drink beer too much and an alcoholic, whatever.
What was that?
Kind of trailed off.
That's a big one right there. Abuse the family, alcoholism.
Killed a bunch of people and buried them in the yard.
That's incredible. Let's hear that again.
I mean, the only bad thing she would say is like drink beer too much and an alcoholic, whatever. But I mean, that's probably
that's just one of the things. I mean, she's very nitpicky though when it comes to my parenting. So I guess that's the thing.
You think maybe that's what the doctor was talking about that many years ago? Do you think that's the theme? I'm sorry. I'm not gonna let it play out.
No, I think the doctor. They were having that argument in the cab about the doctor. Doctor was like, "Look, I know I'm just a doctor, but I think you guys should get a divorce."
I'm not a therapist, but I've just been watching your interaction.
I'm a vet, but you guys shouldn't be together. And I'll keep the dog.
I actually pulled one more clip that I want to play on here.
Great.
Because you know what? Who wants to go through life having people mad at you? And I don't want to go through life that way. It's not who I am, man. I'm not wired that way. I'd rather everyone love each other.
Have a good fucking time.
You know, I know it sounds so cliche and everything, but that's how I don't know. I don't want to hate anybody, and I don't want anyone to hate me.
Listen to this.
Then why does that consistently happen? I'm fucking with you, Johnny.
Boom.
The look that John must have given him because he's just like, "Hi, man, I'm just fucking with you." John did not laugh at all.
Yeah, I didn't hear the fake laugh.
I didn't hear the fake laugh at like, you want everyone to love everyone, then how come everyone hates you?
And that was back then.
And silence. And this is a guy who knows John and knows his friends and hung out with him and his family.
I've never seen this guy on any of his shows.
It's crazy.
He just said his favorite curse word was "you're a fucking dick."
Yeah, I'm just all about peace, love, and understanding. I don't know if you know that about me.
I got 3 words for you. Go fuck yourself.
We got to find Denise. We got to find her.
Find Denise. I don't want to fuck with Suzanner, but Denise would be an interesting person to talk to.
I've already reached out.
Hey. Really?
She does, Carl.
I'm listening.
I wish she wrote a book, but she does a one-woman show. Lessons learned, the time of my life. She just finished 5 days in Houston, and I'm hoping she comes to a town near us.
Does she have a YouTube channel? She must.
Does not. She does not.
One of the few.
Still acting, but yeah. Because I said so, that's why I take a nostalgic journey through decades of wood-paneled wisdom in blank. I won't say your name. Lessons learned in the time of my life.
Wow. That's amazing. I'll go to that.
I reached out.
Field trip.
That's like a Tom Myers title.
Me and Adam
Lessons
are
learned in
interviewing.
the time of my life.
Me and Adam are interviewing her tomorrow night.
Yeah, please do. You can blow off Joey C for that.
Can I sit there and not say anything?
All of John's achievements or things he wants to do or things he stole from other people. Of course, Denise has a one-woman show.
Good point. Yes, that's where you learned it from.
Who are these podcasts?